Good evening, everyone. We are going to call the City Commission workshop for Monday, March 28th, 2022 to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Bradford. Here. Commissioner King. King.
He's here.
Commissioner McCool. Here. Commissioner Ramos.
Present.
Commissioner Sosa.
Here.
Vice Mayor Avila Vasquez. Present. And Mayor Herzberg.
Here. May we all please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner King, would you like to lead us, please? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have one item of business on our workshop this evening. It is section 11, parentheses 1 of the City of Deltona Charter, which requires that the charter be reviewed at least every 10 years. This item is to review and discuss the recommendations presented by the Charter Review Committee, the CRC. So, Ms. Stacy.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So what I'd like to do is just to do a quick overview. The first part is just some public education on the charter, what it is, all of those things, and then go through each of the 5 proposed amendments that came out of the Charter Review Committee. So first, just a little bit of background. Your charter is the foundation for your city government. Essentially, it's the same as your U.S. Constitution and the Florida Constitution. It is the mechanism which defines your form of government structure. It establishes the terms of the elected officials and the manner of their election, and also outlines powers, authorities, functions, and essential procedures. Your charter is filed with the Secretary of State. The City of Deltona Charter was adopted by a referendum on September 9th, 1995, and there were amendments made in 2001, 2008, 2014. That was this copy that was handed out to you this evening, so we just did a breakdown of those. Charter amendments must be completed in accordance with the Municipal Home Rule Powers Act. In your charter, it is section 11. A 5-member charter review committee was established. You actually need to appoint to present recommendations for changes no less than 60 days prior to a scheduled general election. Any petition to amend shall be established by ordinance, requiring a minimum of 2 public hearings, and the proposed charter amendments must be submitted to the municipal electors for their approval at a referendum. Just a note, the deadline for submission to the Supervisor of Elections this year would be August 23rd, 2022. The Commission appointed members to the 21-22 Charter Review Committee on June 28th, 2021. We had 5 members and 2 alternates. They convened 13 meetings between July 2021 and January 2022. They presented 5 charter amendments and 1 recommendation. And in your packet, I just want to note there was a matrix that was submitted to the Charter Review Committee. It was something that actually Mr. Peters started with the Charter Review Committee before I started, and that was one of the first things that I took over when I got here the end of August. And to kind of make sense for me, and I thought it would be helpful for others, I put together a matrix. So I actually went through each of the items within the charter and did a cross-section, if it was recommended to be in your charter or not. So we'll go through the 5 amendments. So amendment number 1, this is a change. Currently we have 6 districts. Each of you is elected within your district, and the mayor is voted at large. What is being recommended here is that you still have to have 100 signatures from within your district, but you would be elected on a citywide basis. Okay. This particular section of the charter is a charter requirement. This proposed change, and let me just go over, so I'm going to go over each of these, and then we can go back and we can have discussion over each of the proposed amendments with the commission. This particular amendment, the staff have some concerns, and when we get to discussion time, we can certainly have Mr. Fowler jump in. But we have some concerns here with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. There are many cases in the Voting Rights Act where at-large is challenged. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 prohibits voting practices or procedures that discriminate on the basis of race, color, or membership in one of the language minority groups identified in Section 4F2 of the Act. And most of the cases arising under Section 2, since in its enactment, involve challenges to at-large elections. So we do have some concerns with proposed number 1. Number 2 is for the city commissioners and the mayor's compensation. Currently, the mayor and the members of the city commission receive annual compensation equivalent to the average annual salary of the mayor and commissioners in the city within Volusia County. The proposed here is that the compensation for the mayor shall be 50% of the salary of the County of Volusia County Chair, and the compensation for the commissioner, for each commissioner, is 50% of the salary of the County of Volusia council members. I do want to note on this particular one that compensation is not a charter requirement, which means it doesn't have to be stated in your charter. You could do this by ordinance, although I should also note that once it's in your charter, you do have to take it to a referendum to remove it. You can't just pass an ordinance. Proposal number 3. This is actually an addition to language to provide a maximum term for a charter officer to be appointed as acting. So currently, you do not have a maximum term. This would add specifically an appointment for acting city manager or acting city attorney shall not exceed 18 months, but may be extended by the commission for an additional 6 months for extraordinary circumstances. On this one, to note, so the charter must prescribe your form of government, in this case, commission manager, but the terms of employment of either the city manager or the city attorney do not have to be stated in your charter. You can also do that by ordinance or an employment contract. Amendment number 4 actually broke this down into 2 separate parts because they are making 2 suggested proposals to the same part. So currently, you have 5 members on the Charter Review Committee. The recommendation here is that you increase to 7 members. And as part of that, the mayor and the commissioners shall each appoint members of the Charter Review Committee from applications of the electors, and each commissioner's appointed member shall be an elector living in the commissioner's district. The mayor's appointment shall be an elector living in the city. This too, actually, amendment number 4, both of these, just to note, these are not charter requirements. The amendment for your charter is actually covered in Florida Statute 166.031. The second part of the amendment for number 4, the proposed change here. So currently, as your charter is written, you appoint a charter review committee. They work independently. They do have staff support. The recommendations that they make are that they're a recommending body to the commission. The commission then goes from there. You have the decision to make changes, select them as is, or come up with something totally different. In the future, this one, they're suggesting that the recommendations actually are no longer recommendations. Whatever they determine to be what is needed for charter review, the commission would hold their 2 meetings for the ordinances, and they would go directly to referendum. The 5th amendment change is a totally new section of the charter review. This would be an environmental review, which would state that the city of Deltona shall establish standards, procedures, requirements, and regulations to provide for environmental concerns on major decisions undertaken by the city commission or city planners. The goal would be to reduce environmental impacts of decisions to the maximum extent possible. This is not a charter requirement in terms of the items that you do have to have within your charter. Okay, I guess it gets a little bit difficult. This is actually something I feel, and I did state to the committee when they were considering this, this is something that would be more applicable, more suited for a comp plan or a strategic plan, not necessarily your charter. And the Charter Review Committee also wanted to set forth a policy recommendation, which would require 8 additional hours of continuing education for commissioners per year through the League of Cities or other governmental resource. It's a good idea. If it's something that you would like to do, you could certainly do that by policy. So that's a quick rundown of what the Charter Review Committee set forth. And Mayor, if you would like, we can go through each of them for discussion.
Commissioners, what is your wish? Is it your wish that we go through one by one and have questions asked for every one of these and comments made? Because basically, we have till August to decide what goes on the ballot and what doesn't go on the ballot.
Right, you just have to hold 2 public hearings.
Right.
So you have to pass ordinances for the items that you wish to set forward.
And one quick question, what is the cost for each amendment to be placed on the ballot?
Joyce, do you know that?
Last time I spoke to Lisa Lewis, there was no cost.
There's no
As long as
cost.
it doesn't go to another page is what I've always been told, so it's really going to depend on how many amendments you put on there.
Okay,
But even with the prior SOE, it was always if it made it to another page.
if it made it to another page, there's,
Never been
okay.
charged for
So
it.
cost is negligible then
Yeah.
unless there's a lot. Okay, so I think for discussion's sake, if the commission is good with that, we will go through one by one, if that's okay. And we can begin with number 1. This is modification for city commissioners to reside within a district while elected citywide. And this is the one that you had comments on in terms of legality and challenge, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioners, do you have any questions on this specific amendment?
Oh, it's not working.
I'm on the board,
I'm
Madam
on the
Mayor.
board.
I have nobody listed on the board. Let me go back here 1 second. My request to speak is not working, so please let me know.
I'm on the board.
I'm on.
McCool, Ramos.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This particular amendment is troublesome to me because not only what we talked about voters' rights, okay, but we must also think about in the larger scale of voters' rights when we talk about Section 2, talk about how we are and what the political climate is right now also. The political climate, you could add to that section of voters' rights, is that we are very divisive political community at now, and this would allow political parties to outnumber the will of a district and vote a certain way for a commissioner. So I'm very much against this. Also, the AG has spoken about this. This has been asked about before when you're talking about the at-large policy. The general preference is that they tend to impair fair representation and impede access to the political process. And that's what our AG says about doing this, because this has been brought up before. So this is restrictive. It is divisive. And although I represent everyone in my in the city, I believe that my district's vote should not be diluted, period. It is a handicapping tool. There's a reason that we have district maps. I don't think that you should be able to have your cake and eat it too. If you're going to be at large, right? But as far as me and mine, I do not want this to be, we are supposed to be nonpartisan, but I think that everybody sitting here would agree that it would be turned into a partisan issue if this was allowed to happen. And it's just, I just don't believe in it. I'm really, there's case law about this that is accessible to anyone as far as this goes. And so I'm really not for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bradford, I have my board back, so you're next, Commissioner Bradford.
Madam Mayor, if I could just note.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Bradford. I forgot to mention, so this evening, obviously, it's a workshop, but what we're looking for is if you would give us consensus, then we will know which of the amendments you would like to move forward into an ordinance form.
Okay, we'll go by one then, and after each one that we have a discussion, we'll decide by consensus whether it goes forward or not. Okay, Commissioner Bradford, sorry.
Okay, couple questions. Was an attorney present when the CRA met?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so did the attorney have input during the meeting? So what I'm trying to figure
Yes.
out is, was input given to the CRA members that this could be a potential problem, one?
It was discussed, yes.
Okay, and when have we ever had, and Joyce may know this, because the only one up here at large is the mayor, so have we ever had a problem with the ballots of items being contested on an at-large seat, which would have been the mayor's over the term of the time?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, so we don't ever have a history of it. Thank you.
Commissioner Ramos?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want to have to necessarily repeat everything, but I believe that the idea of this when I was watching is that the members, and we have a member here, he can correct it if it's correct, but the thought process was that sometimes we have this mindset of my district, but the reality is we make decisions here. Every decision that we make, it's a decision for the whole city. I agree with you, Commissioner. I am elected by District 5. I represent, but decisions made are overall. So I think what they were trying to accomplish here is to take that mindset away. But I would have to disagree. I think the way we're doing is fine. And especially when you're saying that my own district would not vote for me and I yet can be elected by the remainder of the city. And then to put it into aspect, the whole city can vote for me, but only my district can do petitions. It just doesn't make any sense overall. So I'm looking forward to just hopefully we can move forward without this.
Commissioner Sosa?
Yeah, I'm of the same mindset. First of all, not only does it impact voters, but it disenfranchises candidates. When anybody who's run for a position knows that money decides an election. When you take a candidate that's running for a district, you're probably spending $7,000 to $10,000. When you go at large, Mayor, you probably spent what, 50, 60, 70,000. So now you've taken a candidate that has very little money, and you're now making him have to fight somebody that might have special interest backing him throughout the city. So that is one big concern. Another one is I don't like the way that everything in the charter has been crossed out where it says represent, because when you're elected to represent. You're not. I don't like the way that was scratched out. We're pulling represent out of our charter, and that's what we should be doing, is representing. And my last comment is for our attorney. Is this legal?
Commissioner, I have to tell you I have serious doubts about it, but assuming and I'm gathering from what the commission is saying, it's unlikely to proceed forward, so we haven't engaged, or at least I haven't engaged in any in-depth analysis, because if you're not pleased with it, then why bother? But I do have serious doubts.
If I can jump in here, staff was not allowed to be very engaged in this process, but there is one very serious concern that I have with this particular amendment, and that's the implementation. Typically, on something like this, there would be implementation which would say, this is to take effect on the 2024 election, and those who have 2 years remaining on their term, because everybody would be up for election except for the mayor. And normally you would have an implementation that says on the 2024 election, those with 2 years remaining on their term will run for a 2-year term, and those who have 4 years remaining will run for a 4-year term, and that we will have all 6 of the district races run them, because that's the only way you can realistically implement something like that. So it doesn't have an implementation process. As it's worded right now, you would have to divine how that would work. So it's short on that aspect of it, which is a legal matter. That's why I'm answering.
Okay. And just one other point. Right now, we're elected by district. So let's say there's 6,000 voters in a district. So my vote is 1 out of 6,000. If we go at large, you take 6 times 6, that's 36,000. So now my vote's been diluted between 36,000 votes. And as everybody's up here said, I am responsible for my district. I represent my district, but I represent the city as a whole. It's kind of like me, if we take it to a bigger level on a federal level, it's like me voting for a federal House of Rep out of Wyoming. That's basically what it comes down to me, if we look at it at a bigger scale. So I'm in agreement. This is not good.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with all the comments made up here. I ran to represent District 3. I know my district, although, like everyone here has said, we represent the city of Deltona, and regardless of who sends the complaints or the concerns on an email, we all tend to individually in a private way address their concerns with either Mr. Peters or the secretary. However, if I go to District 3, I know my streets, I know where my problems are, I know where the issues are, and I follow up with them. You know, residents in District 3 understand that they're going to call me. So I think that it should stay the way it is, that if you are representing a district, you should be elected by that district and not as a whole. Doesn't stop us from assisting the whole city of Deltona, but the votes should be for the district that you live in. I don't agree with this charter.
Thank you. Commissioner McCool?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This opinion from the AG, just when we talk, is this legal? The opinion from the AG on this matter says, and they advise, with respect to the political efficacy of a single-member district in connection with the election of members of the legislative governing body of a municipality, okay? And it follows to other political things. That it is not a matter requiring a legal opinion. However, should a municipality consider adopting or retaining a multi-member or other at-large scheme, it would be well advised to first consider whether such a scheme would operate to minimize or cancel out the relative voting strength of a racial or political element of the voting population. While this standard is to be met by all types of districting plans, multi-member and other at-large districting schemes have the particular vice of minimizing minority representation, even at the lowest political levels, in a way that could not occur otherwise. And there is case law that talks about voting minimization rendering at-large schemes unconstitutional at all levels of government, including the following, which lists laid out case law regarding this matter. So there is case law regarding the matter. The AG, the Florida AG, while will not render a legal opinion of this or refusing to, dissuades municipalities from doing this. And this is public matter. Anyone can look this up. It is an opinion of the Florida AG. So there you have the legal answer or an answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner King, did you want to make a comment? Did you have any comments on this at all? And it's fine if you don't.
Well, my only comment is that everybody else has said everything that I would have said. I don't see any reason to say it all again. I think this is trying to be nice. I think that moving this forward would be a good way to undermine our own city government, and I think that that is a big mistake, a big mistake. So I'm not in favor of moving this forward at all.
Okay, Commissioner Bradford, I know that you asked questions. Did you have a comment on whether or not you're for this or against this?
No, I'm not. I mean, she answered the question. The attorney voiced his concerns or her concerns during the meeting, that they had previous concerns, so she pretty much answered my question.
Okay, and I'm going to go along with what everyone else has said here. We have districts for a reason, and we have, as some of the people up here said, we in our districts know what's going on in our district. We have district issues that we can bring forth to the commission, to management, to have certain issues addressed. Commissioner Bradford, you have a very commercial district. Vice Mayor is an extreme residential district. Commissioner King, Commissioner McCool, you have a mix. Everyone has different issues. We are there to represent those people and to say that we have to live in a district and then be elected by everyone, which increase, you're right, Commissioner Sosa, increase the cost of your campaigning tremendously. And it's also a confusion for the voter, because when you have 4 people up putting signs around the entire city, how do you know who's your district representative? You don't. You have to. You don't know. They look like they're all at-large candidates when you do that, but you're not an at-large candidate. You have to live in the district, collect your signatures there. So there's a voter confusion there for me, the way that I see that. So I think I'm in agreement. It seems that everyone up here, from what I've written down, correct me if I'm wrong, that no one right now is in favor of this particular amendment. And please, correct me if I'm wrong. I wrote down your comments as we went along. We make decisions in our districts. We also make decisions that affect the entire city. And that's the role of this. So as I see it, we have consensus, commissioners, not to move this one forward. Mr. Peters, Stacy, we're correct. Okay, commissioners, I am going to ask you one other question. Would you like to have public comment after every one of these amendments? Is that good? We'll go ahead and go to public comment. So there's consensus not to move this forward. Has anyone signed up for this item?
Madam Mayor, we have 2 public comments. Tara DeRico, please, and then Albert Bryant.
Okay.
Loud enough. Tara DeRico, candidate District 3. So
Timer,
I agree.
please.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, not you. Timer, please. Is the timer going? Sorry, Tara.
That's okay. No worries.
There you go.
I agree with everything all of you said, so I won't be repetitive, but just a few other things to point out that doesn't sound like it's going to matter now because everyone's in agreement. But also take into consideration what this does from the resident standpoint. So who would we go to with questions, right? So I'm in District 3. If I have a question, I want to know I have my dedicated commissioner to go to with a question or concern. So then who would then be responsible for getting back to me? And then how is that dedicated commissioner supposed to worry about what's going on in their district, but then still field questions about the city at large if they're also getting hit with questions from other residents? So that was all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Albert Bryant, please.
Albert Bryan, Deltona. Mr. Ramos, you asked what they were thinking when they put this forward. What they were thinking is that when you all sit up there, you represent the city. So they wanted to be able to vote as a city. That's the way it was presented to us. Mrs. McCool, as far as the way you were thinking about it, it's less Republican versus Democrat. It's more of the fact that you have block voting when this comes about. Block voting in the city of Deltona would be represented by what? What y'all have voted on so much in the past 2 years, HOAs. Who lives in HOAs? Oh, that's right, the very affluent. So when you think about this one, and I agree with all of you, I really do. The only reason I put a vote on this to push it forward is so I could get it here in front of you, because we were short a member that night. Actually, we were short 2 members that night, if I remember right. And somebody had to actually either put it forward or do nothing. So anyhow, the whole thought process on this one has gone all the way back to 1965. Move it forward when it was first truly challenged, and Ginsburg, from the time she was in office until the time she passed, was completely against what they consider at large. She considered it the next ramification of more or less gerrymandering, and she considered it racial gerrymandering. Even though in the city of Deltona, I don't see that quite as much. Oh, somebody else asked about the lawyer. The lawyer that night said she was aware of it. And that's the kind of the legal ramifications we got that night. Oh, she was aware of it.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Mayor, this ends public comment.
Okay, that closes public comment on that. So amendment number 1, consensus not to move this forward to the ballot. Amendment number 2, modification of compensation for mayor and commissioners. Stacy, this is, would go ahead and change the charter, which says compensation of all 16, average of all 16 cities to 50% of the salary of the county chair and 50% of the salary of the Volusia County Council member.
Yes, ma'am.
So, commissioners, do you have any comments on this item? No comments. Oh, let's see. Somebody's lighting up. Commissioner Sosa, Commissioner Bradford.
Yeah, we are elected as representatives. We're not doing this for a salary. If we look at population, we're about 25% of the county. So do we need half of what the county's getting? Probably not. I know Albert had, for those who got Albert's recommendations, he did post something to, maybe bump the salaries to 500 and 600 biweekly, which is a modest gain, plus, a 3% of the CPI, or a cap in that 3% of the CPI. Something like that I could agree with, but going with half of what the county is making, I totally disagree with.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bradford?
This is one of those topics that none of us want to talk about because we know how much time is put in. And of course, I would love to make more money for what I do, but at the same time, I go back to even our wonderful chart, and I think we pretty much have lost this every time. And, to ask for 50% is quite difficult. Put it in perspective, and I understand some of their thought behind it also was, we're not getting insurance. And I don't know about everybody else, but at the end of the month, I was actually sending the city a check each month. So I was actually paying to be a commissioner, which is a little hard to do, especially when you're on call 24/7, 365. When that phone rings, you pick it up. So I don't know if asking for 50% is maybe the right amount, Do I feel that the seat is grossly unpaid? Yeah, I do. I'm not going to lie. Like I said, I don't think any commissioner, if they choose to do benefits, shouldn't have to write the city a check to be sitting here. That's nuts. You know, I would almost even rather see that if an elected official wants to take a, you know, to do insurance, and we pay for everybody else's insurance, I don't even understand even half of what, you know, we get. But we get zero portions of our insurance paid. But I mean, I think there's some negotiation on this. I don't necessarily think it's the 50%. Maybe it is whatever percentage of the county we represent, that's whatever percentage of the county's wages we receive. So if we do represent 25% of the county wages, maybe we get 25%, or the county's population, we get 25% of the wages. So that's just my take. You know, like I said, I'm just, you know, I had to get insurance otherwise because of having to pay the city to work here.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. So as Commissioner Bradford said, this is a very difficult question to be put to us here. If we choose to get insurance from the city, it comes from our pay, everything, whether it be medical or dental. Some of us here have a job, some of us don't. So some of us depend on this little extra money that gets paid to the commissioners. And I think that a good salary being paid to elected officials in the city of Deltona would attract more people to run for office. A lot of times I approach people and I ask them, why don't you run for office? There's an empty seat, and they'll tell me they don't pay me enough to sit up there. If you look at other cities, they do make a salary that they can sit at that office every day. Is it 50%? I don't know. We'll let the residents decide that to see. But I believe that the commissioners up here at this dais, including the mayor, work, like Bradford said, 24/7. We have to answer phone calls and emails regardless whether it's Monday, Saturday, or Sunday. Should we get a raise? Absolutely, I think so. And I know that I'm going to get heat for this. But we're asked to be honest about it, and I'm being honest about it. I think that a little bit more to the commission up here is, it's a good thing.
Commissioner McCool?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I, like everyone else, I mean, if I had my druthers, I wouldn't speak on this, but we have to, right? So that our residents know where we stand on here. And I am an entrepreneur and have been a business owner for over 20 years, and I get what I pay for. You get what you pay for when it comes to employment, and I would like continued good representation with our city. I don't know what that magic number is because that's going to be different for everybody. But I would think at a very minimum, the cost of living, you know, to help offset. I chose to get insurance through the city, which it's not paid for. I pay for it, and I pay a couple $100 extra every month for my insurance. That's insurance for myself and dental for my partner. And so I just want to, I'm not trying to defend, but explain this is not a high-paying job here. And we do work a lot of hours because we are always on. I've never told somebody, oh, I'm not going to handle that problem because it's the weekend, I'm off. You know, I mean, it doesn't sound good coming out of a public servant's mouth. And I signed up for this job. I hear that a lot. You signed up for this. You deserve that. You know, you signed up. You get what you get because you signed up. I signed up for this job because I wanted to make a difference and because I wanted to serve the public. Didn't sign up for this job to be abused verbally. Didn't sign up this job to, you know, pay extra for insurance. I did this because I love public service. At the same turn of the coin, my time is worth something. My time is worth money because I try to bring professionalism to this job and serve all the time in that capacity. So I definitely believe that you let the people decide and move this forward. 50% might be a stretch because we are, although the largest municipality, you know, I don't know. But knowing what that number is, that's going to take the wisdom of Solomon to satisfy more than half the people. It's going to be voted on, you know, so at the same turn of the coin, this keeps us honest in the fact that it keeps us trying to do our best as well. But I'm not going to have a false pride here and say that I wouldn't like to see a raise for what I do. And I'm confident in that because I believe 100% that I do a good job as a city commissioner and that I'm responsive to my people. And I believe that in order to get good quality people, that it is an attractive quality to have, you know, to get paid for it. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner King?
When I decided to run for office, I didn't know that this position paid anything at all. It wasn't until I was told that if I didn't get my 100 signatures, that I'd have to pay a certain amount to qualify. That was the first time I knew I was going to get any money in this position. I took the position or ran for the position because I wanted to serve the people of Deltona. And that was the only reason that I ran. I certainly didn't run for the money. For those people that would say, the city doesn't pay me enough to run for that office, I say, good, you shouldn't run. Because if you're not here to serve the people and you're just here for the money, you won't do a good job anyway. So don't come out and try. Let somebody else do it who wants to serve the people. I think that it's a long stretch to ask for 50% of what the county gets. I think that Albert and David have already expressed in the communications what I think is halfway decent. It's modest, and I don't think that we should have any expectations of becoming rich in this position here. Again, you know, you don't sit up here for the money. You sit up here to serve. And quite frankly, everyone that's sitting up here now is intelligent, talented, has good incentive and a mind that can have imagination, and we can move forward and make things better. And look what you're making now. And you're still doing a great job. So I'm not against having more money, but I think we should ask for something that is modest and reasonable. So I would move it forward so that we can talk about this some more and figure out what it should really be before it hits the voters.
Commissioner Ramos?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, it's just that catch-22. You do it because you love the job, or, you know, you should be compensated for the type of job that you do. I think at the end of the day, it's always going to be a challenge. The words that we use, what's the magic number, what's modest, for who are we talking about, who's going to come up with the... At the end of the day, the residents are going to make that decision, whatever number, if we even move this forward. So I would say let's just move it forward now. Keep in mind, trying to find that number, of whatever that number is, it's going to be a challenge. Whether it's 5%, 3%, you can discuss it however you want. You can go at any extreme that you want. At the end of the day, I said, let's move it forward, have more conversation for it, but it's just, I don't think it's going to be a conversation that no matter how it comes from this dais, is going to be received by the public. And that's the catch-22. It doesn't matter what we say. I mean, we can actually have some real reason for it. But no, we took this job because, well, we didn't take this job. We got elected for this job because we wanted to do this. But to your point, Danny, you're absolutely correct. Yet, they come up here and they say, we pay you. This is what you got to do for us. And there has to be a balance. But again, it's a no-win situation for us here on the dais. For me, I say leave it as it is, let the residents vote. And that way, they're going to speak their mind. Because the more we go into this, the more divisive I believe this will be.
So my comments on that are, you can't win on this one. But however, some calculations, Commissioner Bradford, 1/4 of the county council salary would actually put us at less than what we're making now. Yeah, so probably not a good idea. Yeah. The one comment I do have, though, is other municipalities across the board. I know there's a salary graph here and a salary study. I got a call a while ago from a reporter talking about what Palm Coast was doing. They make less than us, and they wanted to raise their salary up to $40,000 for, and so on and so forth. And my answer, the question was, what would Deltona do? I said, well, first of all, ours is in the charter, so that's not an option. It's a voter decision, A. And B, when you look at a total compensation package, what are you looking at? Are other cities, and I know some of them in Volusia County, they receive health care, to your point. They may make a very low salary, but they receive their health care. They also receive FRS, the option to go into FRS. And we don't receive any of that. It's specifically put in the charter that we don't get any benefits. And so when you look at a total compensation package, you can say, okay, we can take this, but, compared to other cities, which is not in this matrix, what is their other compensation if you want to have a true picture? Are they getting health care? Are they getting FRS? Like the county, right? County gets FRS, I know that. But again, you don't do this job for the money. None of us are sitting up here for the money or the benefits. That's more than obvious. So my whole point on this little chat is that when you start looking at what's in your charter, the more you put in and the more you specify, it's like the state constitution with all the amendments every single time, class size amendment, 18 kids in a class, what's that cost us? You can't predict the future. So however this moves forward, the more minutia you put in something like this, the more difficult it is to deal with in the future because, as we can see, times change, things change. So, commissioners, do you have a desire to move this item forward for further discussion or as is? And the board is lighting up. Commissioner Bradford, Sosa, King. So we'll go down the line and then we'll go to public comment. I'm going to make my little note here.
You had mentioned, Ms. Stacy, this could be done by ordinance, but we would need to put, I guess, on the ballot then that we want to have it removed. How does that work?
Yes.
Okay. I say we move it forward for discussion.
Okay. Commissioner Sosa.
Yeah, you said the county got FRS? I don't even know. I'm running for county, and I have no idea.
No, they do.
Because I'm with Commissioner King. I didn't do this for the money. I'm not doing any of it for the money. If I wanted to take the amount of time I'm spending here, I would be making probably 10 to 15 times more at my business than I'm making here. So I don't agree with the compensation package, but I do like what Albert had put in his as far as, going by the CPI. If there was some language, maybe we settle, right now we're probably the 6th highest paid in the county as far as municipalities go. Maybe if we get a balance of that for population and then, put a CPI in there for whatever it happens to be that year, whether it's 1.8 or 3%, I think that would be better than trying to go from 10,000 to 25,000.
So are you in favor of moving it forward for further discussion?
For further discussion, yes.
Okay. So further discussion, okay. Commissioner King.
I'm in favor of moving it forward for further discussion. If the commission decides to move it forward as it stands, I am against it 100%, because I don't think it's right. And the fact that we can change this by ordinance, and you know, you talk about maybe a no-win situation that we're all forced into at this point. That'll be a no-win situation too. Anytime we decide to raise our own salaries, people are going to be up in arms about it. So I would rather say no to it going into the charter and have the flexibility of changing it by ordinance if we chose to do that. If we really felt like we had to change or receive more compensation, I'd rather do it that way than to put it into the charter. And now we got to, you got to fight the charter every time you want to do something, make a change. Once it's in there, you're locked in. So I think it's a better idea, if you're going to leave it the way it is, I would vote no on this, and I would suggest that we move it forward by ordinance.
You can do CPI and everything by ordinance, whatever you want then. You have that flexibility to change down the road. Okay. Vice Mayor is next.
Thank you. I move it over to discussion, the same way that Commissioner King is describing. And just for the record, none of us are here for the money, because if you know how much we make, it's not a livable salary. And I guess we're all blessed because we do have a job, something or some kind of benefits coming in. So I ran because I wanted to serve my community or continue serving my community. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Okay, so I have Commissioner McCool, you will move it forward for discussion, for the commission to discuss? Or you move it forward as is? Does it matter? I mean, one way or the other, we have to decide if we're moving it forward or not. So right now, Commissioner Sosa, Commissioner King will move it forward for discussion. You will move it forward for discussion. You are good with forward with discussion. Yes? Sure. Yes, sir. Okay. So I'm going to make my little note here, and I am as well. We will move this forward for discussion, and we'll move to the next one in just a second. Public comment.
Madam Mayor, we have 2 public comments, Tara DiErico and then Albert Bryant, please.
Thank you.
Hi again. Tara DiErico, District 3. So I agree with almost everything I heard here. I don't disagree with an increase, but I think to jump to 50% just seems a bit high. Could there be a negotiation of maybe incremental increases over a period of time, which just makes it a little easier on everyone? Can we look at different options for insurance? I heard the mayor say maybe we can look at other compensation. So maybe there are other ways that compensation can be provided that doesn't equate to a salary increase or a paycheck increase. So I would encourage you all to look at that if there could be. I just think that at a time when folks are really, really struggling, it's hard to justify a 50% increase when there are a lot of folks that can't even buy groceries or having to rely on food pantries or blessing boxes just to feed their families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Albert Bryant, please.
Albert Bryan, Deltona. When we talked about this, it was the reason that your salary right now is in the charter. And it's based on every other city in Volusia County. They take every city that's in Volusia County and they make an average of it. They do it every 2 years. What we thought, or actually I should say what they thought, would be a better idea is to take it away from all the other cities and give Deltona a very specific way of figuring your salary. Did I go along with the 50% of the Volusia County? No. And I'll tell you why. Because the reasoning I was told is that it would bring in better candidates. So they're saying that y'all ain't that good. Well, that didn't make sense to me. Because I appreciate it, even though I get on to y'all every Monday night. I appreciate y'all. I really do. I think y'all are dedicated to what you do. So what I thought about is when you're looking at this, I also wanted to take it away from all the other cities. But I wanted to give you a little bit of compensation because I'm a fiscal conservative. I don't see giving a little bit as a problem. But I also tied it directly to CPI. And Mr. Sosa, it's not 3% of CPI. It is up to 3% of CPI. Because if CPI is at 10%, I don't think y'all should ever get a raise higher than 3%. Because at the end of the day, the people that y'all have under staff very seldom ever get 3% or more. Just something to think about.
Thank you, sir. And before we move forward to the next one, I just want to state in this charter, it says that we're not allowed to have any other benefits. So anything that we have there, it's stated, the only thing we can do is pay into the insurance system. So by charter, we cannot get any, quote, benefits. So, okay, so you have your direction on this. This can be moved forward for further discussion. The next item is Amendment 3, modification to provide a maximum term city manager or a city attorney may be appointed as acting. So they are recommending a maximum term of 18 months as acting with an additional term of 6 months for extraordinary circumstances. My first question is, what is an extraordinary circumstance?
We had fun trying to define that word.
And my comment on this, before anybody else gets into that, is if I could have that privilege, ambiguity in a charter is a big problem. It's always open to interpretation. What is an extraordinary circumstance? That is not until public comment. Sir, thank you. So,
Madam Mayor, if I may.
yes, sorry. I was like,
okay.
where did that come from?
You've brought up a couple of things so far regarding too much being in the charter, being tied to things because they are in the charter. And as Mr. Peters had discussed, staff involvement in putting forth ideas in the charter review was not encouraged. We were there to provide support, but it was an independent recommending body. The very first meeting, which I was not at, so Mr. Peters, I think, did the first 3 meetings before I started, but of course, getting prepared for it, I did watch each of the meetings, so I was up to speed when it was my turn. The very first meeting, one of the members suggested that you essentially scratch the entire charter and start over. And he made some very good points. And when you read over the city charter, there are a lot of things in it that are outdated. As I mentioned, when you take a look over the matrix, if you haven't had a chance, there are a lot of things there that are not required to be in the charter. And some of them, specifically Section 6, which is regarding budgets and appropriations. There are actually things in there that are covered by state statute. Our finance department has run into some issues because there's some inconsistency between what is in your charter and what is in state statute. So in an instance like that, where you have state statute, which is what you're following, if they change state statute, if you cover items like that in your policies, it's a lot easier for your staff to adjust with what the legal requirements are. So since you've already moved one item forward for further discussion, and I'm not telling you what to do, but it is certainly something that staff feel that you should consider, and that is a complete rewrite of your charter.
Okay. Commissioner Bradford?
I actually am for moving this one forward. I'm okay with it. I guess the only question would be the extraordinary circumstances. I think 18 months gives a lot of cities plenty of time to look for an acting city manager, starting the process within 90 days. That's only 3 months, but, you kind of, a lot of cities would be starting their process pretty quickly. So a lot of cities, when they have a situation, they're going to start the search immediately. So given 90 days, I understand that there's a whole, as you would say, metrics of finding the firm, doing this. I mean, we went through that process already where, we had to find the firm and do all that. So I am actually for moving this forward.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Any other comments from commissioners? We're going to go down the line. Commissioner King, are you interested in moving this item forward? Or Commissioner McCool, anybody that wants to jump in here?
I'd like to move this forward for discussion. This is one of those areas where I think we have some hard decisions to make. We started a process, and we've put that process on hold. And we've put that process on hold because we have someone in a temporary position that's doing a better job than anybody in the past 10, 15 years has done. And we have seen some really, I think, amazing and good changes in the city of Deltona. So I would move it forward for further discussion, or at our next meeting, maybe we should have some kind of consensus for making a motion to change the way we select our city managers and what their requirements should be. Because I think part of the outdated process is the fact that we're asking our city manager, our attorneys to live inside the city. And the fact is, our attorney already isn't living inside the city. I don't see why our city manager has to live inside the city either. He certainly doesn't have to live inside the city to do a good job for us. He's been doing a superior job for us. So maybe those are the things that needed to be changed. So I'll move it forward for discussion. I think we need to look at this seriously, and I think we need to make some decisions. And we should probably make decisions before this even goes to the voters. I mean, this shouldn't be an issue from this point until November. I mean, it's like I go to the doctor to find out whether or not I have cancer, and I'm not going to find out. I go to the doctor today, but I'm not going to find out until November whether I have it or not. And I think that's terrible. And that's the position we're getting put in right now. And again, I'm not sure that this wasn't put in there to undermine what we're doing in the city. So That's my opinion. Think we need to do something about our situation, and we should take care of that situation before this ever goes to November.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner McCool?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am for moving this forward also for discussion. And my reason for that is that we need to talk about it much like both Commissioner Bradford said and Commissioner King said, right? We can't be wishy-washy with this point and show favoritism because we have a city manager that we like that's doing a good job. There has to be policy behind that, right? And we have to discuss that. We have to discuss all parts of this, right? It's a hard conversation. Wisdom of Solomon here again is going to take input, but I don't know how you bring this forward to the people. I don't know what package this goes in to bring this forward to the people. Do you let the people decide now as it's written? Do you have more conversation? I'm about moving it forward though, because there needs to be a lot of feedback on this matter so that we have a clear picture, but I want it to move forward.
Okay, Commissioner Ramos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think for purposes, instead of debating this here, I say let's move it forward and then have those proper conversations when we need to with all the information.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
Just for clarification, Stacy, can you repeat again the reason why, just the reasons that you explained before we took a vote up here?
You're talking about replacing the entire charter?
Yes.
So if you take a look at that matrix, it might make it a little bit easier for you. So it actually breaks down each section and tells you whether or not it's required to be in the charter. And then if it is required to be in a charter, there is a column that gives an explanation. It'll even point out to state statute why it's required. If it's not required, the next column will tell you essentially how you can handle it outside of a charter. So in terms of if that's something that you want to consider, and it was discussed, like I said, with the committee, so you essentially would be putting forth an entire charter. At the same time, you would want to be ready with any of those ordinances or policies that you would have to have in place once, if the voters elect to go with the entirely new charter, you would have the ordinances ready to go.
Okay, so I want to use an example that we confronted with the explanation you've given us. When COVID broke out, right, we were restricted to having meetings here in the room. It wasn't open to the public. And I think I know that's how Zoom meetings came about, right, during COVID. Then we came with the problem that the charter the charter said that we had to be in person to have the meetings, right?
I believe that's state statute, actually, and there was a...
But the charter also, it was between state statute, but I think we consider moving forward after the government released...
the exception.
Right? But we still had to face with the charter because the charter said you have to be in person. So I think we had discussed, we took a vote, I think it was, to make it possible for us to have meetings via Zoom and stuff like that. I like the fact that this should be something that can be changed during discussion instead of having it to be in a charter, but I would like to move forward to further discussion on this item.
Okay, Commissioner Sosa?
May I go and speak on this?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going back to the sheet, and we're all sitting up here talking about the people. Now, how do we change it? Like you said, a motion next meeting. How would we do that when it's in the charter that, like, it was voted on in 2008, and it was the requirements for in-house city attorney, I believe, and then we had another one for city manager in 2014 as well, where we were removing the residency. And that amendment was 17,000 to 5,300. So we're sitting here talking about what the residents want, and it's very clear here, the residents want individuals to be residing within the city. Now, I was explained that the charter, we were able to hire the firm for the law firm because it was a firm we were hiring and not the individual. So there's a difference between the firm and the person, but I don't know how we can sit up here and say, hey, we're going to pass an ordinance, we're going to do that, when according to the charter, it's very strong that the residents, each time they voted, said they want that person to reside within our city. You know, and, you know, that's why I said I'm very much for us moving it forward. We're sitting up here saying how we're doing this for the people, but yet we're ignoring what they're requesting. So that's just where I have a little bit of a problem with saying, okay, well, we're just going to go around it and we're just going to change it, when there's a couple of things that they're pretty strong about over the last few charter amendments. One of them was our raises, and the other one is this one. So these are items that I think we have to take into deep consideration and say, you're either going to get it through or you're not. And to try to get something through that they're pretty strong about, we got to look forward. You know, we got to look at that. You know, I, for one, do believe we need a city manager, you know, and, you know, I skip nothing against you, and, you know, you'll know it too. That was one of the reasons I voted no for the law firm. You've done a great job, thank you, but was because he did not live within the city. So that's just my personal 2 cents. I do want to move this forward to speak about it, but my question is, what exactly Commissioner King was speaking of about making a vote next meeting? I mean, really, what can we do if it's in the charter?
You mean the fact that there's a residency requirement?
Right.
You can put it on the ballot for a referendum. You can change that.
Is that what you're asking for, Commissioner?
No, Commissioner.
You can change the residency requirement. Is that what you're asking?
How do we change the residence requirement is what I'm saying.
You can't. You have to go by,
You put it
has to
on
be
the
a charter
referendum.
amendment.
No.
Just
No,
like
I'm
you're-
not sure what,
Yeah, just like you're doing right now.
all right, well, that's why I wasn't sure what you were saying we would vote on next meeting.
Oh, no. That was just discussion.
Right.
But in terms of like what is in front of you in terms of the amendment, that's one of the changes. If the commission wanted to remove the residency requirement and add the acting, you have the ability to do that right now. You just, there's a wording requirement, right? There's a maximum number of words that you can actually put on there. So you have to be very brief in how much you're asking to change.
Commissioner Sosa?
Yeah, going back to Commissioner King's comment, I thought he wanted to change this by ordinance too.
Yeah,
That's where I got confused. And I totally disagree with that. If this did go, it would have to go to the residents. And I'm looking at the same numbers Commissioner Bradford's looking at. And, you know, it's overwhelmingly, you know, in favor that the city manager and the city attorney live within the city limits. So I personally would not go and change this by ordinance. If this is something that gets moved on to the ballot, we'll let the voters decide at that time. However, I do have some concerns with the terminology of extraordinary circumstances. I think that needs to be defined because, as I've seen in government, we can make anything an extraordinary circumstance. So I think we definitely need to get some definitions on that.
Thank you, sir. And I will also say, yes, we need to move this forward for discussion. And just commentary on that. This would be in addition to what's in the charter regarding the residency requirement, and this is an additional item that would be added in there. And I will again say, and I'll say this after every single amendment, not everyone, but for the most part, the more you put in, the more problems you have when you try to change things or when circumstances, extraordinary or not, change. And the other comment I'll have on that, when the city was first incorporated, there was not a residency requirement for a city attorney nor a city manager. That was brought up in the mid-2000s. And since that time, you have had one interim city manager that actually owned a home in this city, one of everyone else that was in here. Everyone else rented. They lived in the city, but they rented. One, and that was Mr. Dale Baker. And he was already he was a city employee, and he lived in the city, still does from what I understand. He was the only manager that you had that actually owned a property in this city since the residency requirement was changed. It's my understanding, from Faith Miller on, everyone rented in this city. So to say that you have to live in the city, you live in the city, but you rent, or like one charter officer did, bought a condo in the city and never lived in it. Just had it. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is a realistic discussion that the commission needs to have. Things that you put in the charter, you have to take the whole big picture and look at what you are actually doing and what the reality of the circumstances. Because a voter doesn't know, yeah, of course I want these people to live in the city, but do you know that they're renting and they can leave in a minute? And the volatility of Deltona keeping a city manager is part of the problem, that you have issues with residency requirements because of how we have turned city attorneys and city managers over. It's an unstable environment to come here and actually purchase a piece of property to live in the city and hope that you have a job longer than 2 years. So you have consensus to move this forward for discussion. Public comment, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, we have 2 public comments, Tara DiErrico and then Albert Bryant.
Good evening, everyone. Excuse me, Tara DiErrico, District 3. So I agree with Commissioner Bradford that if this goes forward, there needs to be no ambiguity if it goes forward as is. We saw a lot of that, a lot of those issues come back and come in the past where things weren't clearly defined. And I will say, I was initially, anyone acting city manager, attorney, absolutely, they need to live in the city, However, when you see the evolution of the city and you see some things that have transpired, the bottom line is we should be looking for the right person for the job. Why does it matter if they live in Deltona or if they live in Orange City? If it is the right person to do the job, who's going to continue to move the city forward, why does it matter where they live? So perhaps we can look at, instead of living in the city, maybe they need to live within a certain proximity of the city. That may be, a good compromise. So there's still a little bit of a vested interest. They're still very familiar with the area, very familiar with the dynamics, but they don't have to reside in the city. And we don't narrow the candidate pool just looking strictly at where they live. I manage a very large team. If I have 2 folks that come to me for the same position, and one is living in the same city that our company is based out of, but one is living somewhere else, even in another state, if that person is the right person to do the job, and if they have a proven performance history, it doesn't matter to me where they sit. What matters to me is how they're doing the job. And I think as I've talked to more and more people, that's what matters more now to a lot of the people out here. I don't disagree that maybe 3-4 years ago, a lot of folks were of...
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. You're welcome.
Albert Bryant, please.
Albert Bryan, Deltona. I have to admit that with this one, I was on board originally. I really was. Because, as y'all know, when y'all fired Jane and y'all hired Mr. Cooper, I begged you to go out and get a real manager. And then when y'all demoted Mr. Cooper and you brought him on, I did the same thing. I begged you to keep the process moving forward. Wow. But I have a real simple problem with this one, and that's the fact that it says 18 months and an additional 24 months. You know, what's funny is I came to the conclusion that y'all actually review him every 12 months. If you don't like the job he's doing, are you going to renew his contract? Nah, I don't think so. You just go tell him, there's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out. And if you don't, then we're going to yell at you. And you know we do that very well. Here's the thing. If y'all tie this to that, what happens if you do have another pandemic and it runs for 34, 36, 100 months? Then you're saying that you got to refill his position. Well, if you take and do it 12 months on renewing his contract, then you don't have to worry about it. Because at the end of the day, you're still renewing his contract. Oh, and as far as the manager living in the city, I refer you to what I turned into y'all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move on to the next amendment. Amendment 4, establish charter review committee as independent and require amendments to be placed on the ballot. So this is basically saying that the charter review committee, what these 5 items that they brought forward would be mandatory to go on the ballot. Am I correct?
Correct. So this was 2 parts. So it's making it mandatory, and they also were changing the number of members and how the members were appointed.
So to use Commissioner Bradford's commentary, when you look here in second page, you have increased the number of members of the city's Charter Review Advisory Committee. Was close, but it failed. So basically, this is an easy one, commissioners. You either decide that, using this example, you would move all of these forward and you would have no choice in the matter and no discussion, and it would be brought forward and we would have to vote yes. We wouldn't even have to vote. We'd have to do a resolution as a formality. Or
an ordinance.
You don't,
You would do an ordinance.
you do an ordinance, but you basically can't
You're
vote
not
no.
changing it.
You can't vote no because you're going against, it's a charter violation. So that's it. And you have to decide whether or not this is something the commission would like to move forward. There's really no discussion. You either, exactly, you want it or you don't want it. You either establish them as independent and what they say goes, or you don't, and you keep it as it is. So do we have any comments from anyone?
So just to note, I believe this was suggested because that is the way the county does it.
Yes, the Volusia County does it, but they also have a larger charter review committee, and they have them from all across the county, and it's a long and different process. It is, the people that are appointed there are generally chosen, I believe, by each commissioner, correct? I'm pretty sure. They're chosen, everyone gets there's like 7, right? And I believe there's 7 in alternates. And the county does have an ultimate say in that. So, I remember the last time, it was a very long involved process. I believe they had public hearings. They had public hearings around the county that they brought their things forward and listened to the public as they did that. Nothing like that is described here. I'm sorry, Commissioner Bradford, Commissioner Ramos.
And that was my question. So why did they decide to put this on? Can we get a little bit more enlightenment on this discussion?
Because the county does it.
Just because the county does it that way? Let me ask it another way, because you were there for this, right? So during, I don't know what we would call it, proceedings, meetings, discussions, did you feel a need that adding 2 more members to the city of Deltona's was needed? I mean, obviously the county has 574,000 people. We have 98,000 roughly. did you see a need that we needed those additional 2 members, or was there more of a need of alternates?
Yeah, actually, we'd have to go look at the attendance, but I do recall there being the need to call on the alternates quite often to have a number of people to vote.
Did we always have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so we always had a quorum. We did on a couple occasions have to call on alternates, which were there. I mean, I guess with me, I don't want to do something just because the county does it. You know, that's why I'm sitting here going, so, you know, if we're doing something because the county does it, we got a whole lot of amendments to make. So, you know, with me, I don't see a reason unless you, Ms. Stacy, can give us a really good reason on that you felt that this was needed. Not so much. Then I don't necessarily care if we move it forward.
Thank you, ma'am. Ramos, Commissioner Ramos, then Commissioner Sosa and McCool.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think you said it correctly. This is either up or down. I say no, down on this one. Thank you.
Commissioner Sosa?
I'm in the same place. When I read this and it says independent review and require all proposed amendments be placed on the ballot, to me, that's a no. I'm not an ultimatum guy. It's all or nothing. I'm going to have to go with nothing on this one.
Commissioner McCool?
What you said.
Vice Mayor?
How many alternates do they have?
2.
2. So it looks like they're asking 2 questions here.
Yes.
They're not asking us to approve one thing. They're asking us to approve 2 different things in that question.
Correct.
So my answer is no.
No? And that leaves Commissioner King.
No.
And you're good, Commissioner King, that's it, one word? And I will agree not to move this forward. And tonight's meeting is a prime example. You had the first charter amendment suggestion that has the possibility of legal ramifications. Who's on the hook paying for all that? The city. So if something gets put forward and we have to accept that and move that forward, and there's a legal challenge, what's it going to cost us in attorney's fees? What's it going to cost us in staff time and everything else? I mean, this is why, again, times change, the state changes, rules and laws and ordinances change. So you basically have a unanimous NO to moving this one forward. Public comment?
Madam Mayor, I have one public comment. Albert Bryan, please.
You know, this one was really kind of odd for me. I voted like y'all just voted, but then I had a thought. And because this is a 2-part question, I decided to look at one part of it. And that's the fact that I like the 7 members. And that represents you 7 members. I thought that was kind of cool. But I also like 3 alternates. The thing that really bothered me is I didn't like taking y'all out of the loop. I like that part for the one main reason what the mayor just stated. But I also thought that it should be 18 months before the next election cycle. And it should be turned in 120 days before the general election rather than 60 days. That way, there's more time to discuss it all. As a charter review, we had very heated discussions. And y'all know me. I'm loud. I'm not a quiet person. I put my voice out there. Y'all know Mr. Novich. Same way. Maybe not quite as loud as I am, but you know. What we thought about on this, me and Novich were actually on the same page on this one. We didn't like taking it out of your hands. Because you have to remember, at one point in time, a charter review committee put forth 17 amendments. If y'all weren't involved in that, all 17 would have gone to the ballot. Let me think about that. If I saw 17 amendments from my city, I'd just take, no, cross every one of them. That'd be that. And that's what we get a problem with. That's when we see 5, even today. You look at 5 of them, you think, what the heck?
Thank you, sir.
It's kind of easy.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so basically, we have a hard no on that one. And our last item is environmental, and that is, hold on, I apologize, I got lost in reading the rest of the policy. Add a requirement to establish standards to provide for environmental considerations on major city decisions. Shall a city charter be amended to add a provision requiring standards, procedures, requirements, and regulations to provide for environmental considerations on major decisions undertaken by the city commission or city planners? Commissioner McCool,
Yes. No.
you want this one to move forward?
Yes, I do.
Oh, cool. All right, anybody else have a commentary on this? Commissioner Sosa.
While I agree with it, we need environmental standards. Is this something that we can put in when we're doing our land use now that we have the moratorium going forward?
We already have Section 18-73 green building standards in our code of ordinances.
Yes. So would this not be duplicating that process?
This is
Madam Mayor,
not a charter requirement.
If I could address Mr. Sosa's comment, one of the concerns I have with this element is, under Florida land use laws, your decisions are supposed to be based on the comprehensive plan, future land use map, and et cetera. You could have a situation here where your charter is opposite of what your comprehensive plan states, and you could have some legal issues with regard to rezonings and things of that matter. That's my concern with having this language in the charter.
So in discussion with the committee, it went beyond land use. It also included like vehicles that were purchased by the city, making sure that they were a hybrid or some form of economical vehicle whenever possible. I mean, obviously, there are certain equipment that we use that you're not going to be able to find such a thing. But it did go beyond land use, so I just wanted to point that out. If you're looking for something like that, that can certainly happen with city policy much faster than putting it on a referendum.
Commissioner Sosa,
I would move it along for further discussion.
you want to move it along for discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. So here again, it's like a tricky question because you're saying it went above discussion of land use, but they're throwing in the cars. So it's a very tricky question. If you want to ask me about the cars and go with electric cars to, to save pollution and stuff, absolutely. But that's not what this is saying. This is strictly going in a different direction, so I'm going to say no.
Okay, Commissioner McCool.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I say yes because this should be discussed. Not that I have really any idea that this is going to make it into the charter. I understand that. But I'm trying to elevate the conversation about this and elevate it to the point that this is a really important part of how our city moves forward. I understand the land use, I understand the legalities. I'm very serious about this, but I do understand that. I just would like this to be a part of our bigger conversation as we're moving forward, especially with the moratorium, because we do need to add provisions requiring standards, procedures, requirements, and regulations to provide for environmental considerations on major decisions undertaken by the city commission or city planners. Things simple as if we're going to approve a property or a development, we need to walk that, put our feet on the ground, and stop thinking in zero-dimensional planning standards. And what I mean by that is you can't tell a lot about a development looking at a zero-dimensional piece of paper, so I just want us to think about those things moving forward. Perhaps that it be a requirement that if you're going to vote on a piece of property, you should actually have been engaged with the property, things like that, as we move forward environmentally with our city. So I hijacked this platform, yes, I did, specifically for this amendment, but it's serious how we move forward ecologically, environmentally, and we need to seriously talk about this. So yes, again, I'm about moving this forward for discussion.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Ramos?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Commissioner McCool, if we seriously want to have a conversation, then let's move it forward, but not under this arena, because this arena is just about an amendment. And if the reality is that this can be just a feel-good, and we have a way of doing it through our strategic and comp plan, and even through city policy, I say no, and let's have that conversation outside of this, because if not, all we're doing is just having a feel-good conversation. I vote no.
Commissioner Bradford, and then Commissioner King.
Commissioner Ramos, I have to agree with you. It's a feel-good, 100%. We're not here to do a feel-good that takes up time, money, and energy. We've got a few great items we're moving forward. This is a complete, it doesn't belong here. I mean, that's all we're just going to leave it at that. It doesn't belong here, so I don't see us moving this one forward.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner King? Come on, King.
I can't. I'm sorry. I don't see any place for this in the charter. We have a comp plan. If we need to look at that, which I think we're about to do anyway, I think that these provisions should be addressed in that comp plan and even in the strategic plan, but not here. I would say no. I don't think it needs to move forward here in this platform. If you're really worried about saving the environment and climate change and all that stuff, let me just assure you that we're all going to be here until Jesus comes, and we're all going to live on this planet. It's going to survive. And the other thing I'd like to point out is that this country does more for the environment than anyone else in the entire world. And now we're being asked to take up all the slack for the rest of the world, which restricts us from doing some really good things for our own people and our own country. So putting it in the charter, getting back to this, putting it in the charter, I think is not the place for it. So I don't want to move it forward under this platform.
Thank you, sir. So again, for me, I can't support moving this forward for the simple reason, shall the City of Deltona Charter be amended to add a provision requiring standards, procedures, requirements, and regulations to provide for environmental considerations on major decisions undertaken by the City Commission or city planners? What is a major decision? What is a major decision? What standards? What standard are you going by? What procedure are you using? What are you using, the LEED standard? Are you using green standards? Are you using a procedure that is done by a building code? What are your requirements and what are your regulations? Who sets the regulations? City Commission? Is a regulation an ordinance? Is it a policy? Is it a procedure? Is it a resolution? Way too loosey-goosey. No, for me. So right now, according to my little chart here, we have the Vice Mayor, no. Bradford, no. King, no. Ramos, no. Me, no. Sosa, discussion. McCool, hijacking the platform. Your words. Yes. And are you good I mean, this is a 5-2 right now. Are you good with not moving it forward then? And sad face. Sad face, many tear face. However, Commissioner, the sad face could turn into a happy face, the Land Development Code and all those other things.
And Madam Mayor, I am moving forward in respect because I know that you're going to be one of the hugest champions of this cause moving forward. So
What cause would that
I'm
be?
at peace with better
What cause?
environmental policies for
Yeah,
our city. So
I agree.
thank you for that, Madam Mayor.
That and safety, girlfriend. Okay, so public comment.
Madam Mayor, we have 2 public comments, Tara DeErico, then Albert Bryan.
Tara DeErico, District 3. So while I would have loved to have seen this move forward for discussion, I understand everyone's concerns and what you all said. And I believe I heard earlier, that this can be addressed with strategic planning. So just wanted to just close with that, just to make sure that that's what we all heard a little earlier. Thank you.
Thank you.
Albert Bryan, please.
Bring it home, Albert.
All right.
2
The
minutes.
thing is that it says major decisions on it. Think about that, and then think about me standing here. Every decision you make is a major decision to make. So if you can't claim that you thought about the environment on every single one of those decisions, I'd have to question it. Now, that doesn't mean I don't come up here and question everything y'all do anyhow, but that would be an added incentive for me to question it. All this is policy, 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 policy. This, do you see this in the Florida Constitution? No. Do you see it in the United States Constitution? No. Your charter is your Constitution. So for that reason only, this should be a policy. I don't care where you put it, how you put it, and or otherwise. If you want to make a policy for the commission itself that says, we think about environmental concerns, or if you want to tell that man sitting in that beautiful pink shirt that he has to consider an environmental reason behind every decision he makes, that's a policy. Make it a policy, I don't care, but don't put it in the charter. For you to put this in the charter is just adding extra lines to the charter that are not needed at all.
Thank you, sir. So, wrapping this up, my notes here. Amendment 1, not to move forward. Amendment 2, forward for discussion. Amendment 3, forward for discussion. Amendment 4, not to move forward. Amendment 5, not to move forward. Am I correct? City Clerk? Yes. Okay. And Commissioner Bradford.
I'm just going to ask this question because some things have come up. Are we allowed to bring items up that we would like to move forward for future discussion?
And for the charter?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We have individuals, and this is nobody, please up here take anything personal. When we have individuals run for offices other than a commission seat, and help me clarify, Ms. Joyce, if I'm wrong here, if an individual resigns their seat, whatever reason, they didn't win, they're in this election, they're resigning after the election. So what's happening then is we're either appointing and then they're running again. You know, to me, it just seems as if somebody's running for a seat other than a commission seat, we need to be able to put that seat on the ballot. That's just a personal opinion, you know? So I'm just gonna throw out, if I'm running for a seat, I should be one, and I think it also, the diocese is used a lot up here for political, you know, to help with that seat. And that also assures to the people that it's not going to be. But I think right now, if somebody is running for an office other than the commission seat, they're not required to resign prior to the election. Is that correct, Joyce?
Now, if you're resigning from your commission seat, like.
Well, if I'm running for state representative, am I required to resign from my seat prior to the election?
Yes.
Yes.
So, but
With
my
an effective
position's
date.
not going to be on the ballot and available because I have not resigned. So therefore,
Depends on the effective date. So you have your date of your resignation, when you resign to run, and then your effective date of it.
right, and those dates, but that doesn't give the time for that to be on a ballot. You know what I'm saying? So,
when they do it.
so what happens at that point? Then the person comes before the commission and we appoint a person.
These are directives set by the state of Florida.
Yeah.
That's a state
It is a
directive,
state
not- okay.
situation, and you can, and some of it is in our charter, but the directives set by you, it's 1 week before qualifying, you have to resign and state your intent. And you can either resign immediately, which triggers one thing, you can resign on election day, or you can resign on the date your office is over. For example, Volusia County. If you are running for, if you're in Volusia County and you're running for another office, they change over January 1st. So you can, even though election day is November 7th, if you choose to resign effective January 1st, you still work November and December. With us, ours turns over the week after the election. So you can either resign that, like right away at qualifying, or you can resign on election day, or you can resign the week after. And depending on how you resign, it depends if it triggers you to have an election or an appointment. Because anybody that's served out less than half of their term, it becomes an automatic election. And anybody that's done 1 day more than half of their term, it becomes an appointment.
Well, so that's what I'm saying. So if I put my name in right now for state rep, and I did not resign, then you guys would appoint?
resign.
Am I
You have to resign.
You have to resign.
I have to resign.
You have to
Okay,
resign.
So I have to resign for that position. And I'm not running. I'm just trying to get clarification here, guys.
Well,
Do not
there is
start
an
that.
opening.
Yeah, no, not running. So I would be required to run, and then that seat is on the ballot.
No, because you would be, it depends when you resign, because if you resign after the election in
That's what I'm
November,
saying.
you
So
will
then
be,
we'll be appointed.
it would be an appointment. It depends,
That's-
but it
that's
leaves
what
it
I'm
in the.
saying. But
it
that's a
leaves-
state thing you're saying
It's
we
state.
can't do anyway. Okay.
And it's partially in our charter with the half, it's in our charter, the resigning requirements are state, correct, Joyce? How you resign is a state requirement.
Right, the only thing that's in our charter is the fact that if they have 2 years or less than 2 years when they resign.
Okay.
And
And
that
then
can
the
be
other
the
one,
resignation.
Vice Mayor had brought up, and I know we talked about this before, and we all said, okay, well, when we do the charter review, let's make sure we address that. And I think we got an answer. I think we were told it was in the charter, but then I think it was clarified that it's not in the charter, that we are not allowed to have virtual meetings. Can we get a total clarification? Because I think that's one thing that I was kind of upset about originally, is we were told it was in the charter, and then we were told, oh, it wasn't in the charter.
It's not in the charter.
Okay,
It's
I
a
didn't think so.
It's a policy.
There's actually a state
It
statute.
was just a policy, correct, yeah.
Correct.
So I think we were originally told it was a charter, and then they kind of rescinded and said, oh, no, it wasn't a charter. We could have held meetings, but we didn't know.
No, it is a policy that came into effect probably prior to 2010, because Commissioner McFall-Conti at that time did, and Commissioner Denizak did phone-in meetings at that time. And after that, it was changed. I don't know if it was a resolution or an ordinance or just a policy. I don't know, Joyce, what it was, but am I correct? It was changed.
Yeah, I think it
but
was a
it's not.
resolution.
I don't believe it's in the charter. I think the quorum factor is in a charter.
No, the quorum is actually, I believe, state statute. I'd have to refer
State,
to the
yeah.
attorney, but I believe you have to be in person to be counted towards the quorum, and that's state statute.
The Attorney General issued an opinion that you can participate, assuming it's otherwise allowed, indirectly by phone, et cetera, but you can't qualify as part of the quorum. Now, that is his opinion. I don't know that it's ever been challenged so as to have a judicial determination.
So you can participate, but if we don't have 4 up here, it's not an official meeting.
Got to have a quorum.
Have to have a quorum, in-person quorum.
Right.
Okay.
There was just an exception made for COVID.
I was just trying to say, because everybody, I'm kind of getting some beef that, oh, well, we're going to be appointing people because we haven't done that. So it's not us, it's a state statute that says we have to do this. So
Correct.
Thank
What's
you
in
for
your-
clarification.
What's in your charter is the process for how you fill the slots and
That's
how.
it.
Correct.
Right. Okay, good. So I can kind of respond intelligently. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, and then Commissioner Ramos.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a question regarding the filling in of the slots, right? I guess this ties to your question. It's my understanding that there's something that just got passed in Tallahassee, that the governor is going to be filling in the slots. I don't know if it's at a commission level or another level, but this was in discussion at a meeting that I attended. Can we find out about that? That slots were going to be filled, the decision was going to be made at the Tallahassee level.
It's been suggested that it's in the situation where the governor removes somebody from office.
Okay, can we find out about that, though?
Surely.
Because I think that's how it was explained. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Ramos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to go back to Commissioner Bradford. And you don't always have to resign. So there's that aspect that you're running for another office doesn't mean you have to resign as long as you're fulfilling your term in office. So there's not always a resignation. I understand it's been it's not a policy, it's been something that's gone on this dais, but not always when you're running for another office do you have to resign because you're fulfilling your elected years.
Like, for example, he's done.
So, for example, yes,
For you.
I'm a county council candidate. I am done this year. I have a choice to either run for District 5 or run for something else. I have chosen to run for something else, but therefore I do not have to resign. I can fulfill my commitment.
And when you're in Commissioner Sosa's spot, because he's only 2 years in, he has to decide what he's going to do. He has to resign. If you're in the middle of your term, like, you have to resign, just like Commissioner McFall did, Commissioner Barnaby and Lowry and so forth.
But they don't have to resign until January.
No.
They choose. They can decide.
By law, by state law, he has to make a decision 1 week before qualifying when he's going to resign. And the reason that's done is to allow another candidate to be able to qualify. If he chooses to resign the beginning of whatever that week is in June, it gives anybody else that wants to run for his seat the opportunity to go and file for that seat.
That was my question.
Yeah.
So when he resigns, there's still time for somebody to
Yes.
qualify
Yes.
for that district to put their name in.
Yes.
It's not necessary. Okay, that was my
Madam
main.
Mayor.
Thank you.
If I can jump in on this one. When I looked at the calendar that came from the supervisor of election, there's a qualifying date, and that's when you have to do it. But there's a resignation date, I think it's just a few weeks before, to give people an opportunity to qualify to get on the ballot.
And you're absolutely right. It's either 1 week or 10 days prior, 10 days. So, but the other thing, because you're right, Commissioner Ramos, whether it becomes an election for his seat, let's use you as an example, or a commission appointment, depends on what date he picks to officially resign. He's handing in his paperwork in June to say, I'm resigning on one of 3 dates. And he either can resign at qualifying, which becomes an election. He can resign at election day, depending on how that falls, it becomes an election. If he sits in there 1 week after the election is over, it becomes a commission appointment because he has fulfilled more than 2 years of his seat. So it's up to the candidate on how they want to resign, whether it triggers an appointment or not. Commissioner McFall was way over his 2 years when he chose to resign, so it became an appointment. And the same, I believe, with you, sir. So.
What you doing, David?
Whoa. You just keep them all in suspense.
Don't worry. If this is about me, I'm going to
No.
resign in plenty of time to make sure there is a candidate placed on the ballot. Because one thing I hate is an appointment. I'd rather the people elect their representative.
No, this wasn't specifically about anybody. There was just a huge discussion I seen recently online, and I was like, this person's saying this, and they made it look like that seat doesn't have to reside until January, and that means we're appointing, and oh, great, this is all planned out, the commission's, everything's our fault. So we're in a conspiracy, you're in a conspiracy with us, anyway, so
I just
thank
wanted the
you.
tinfoil hats to come off, you know what I'm saying?
We're involved in all conspiracies of the city, just so you know.
Okay, so you're right, both the one to my left and the one to my right have brought up page 8 of 30. The Charter Review Committee recommends the following policies be implemented by ordinance or resolution, require 8 additional hours of continuing education for commissioners per year through the League of Cities or other governmental resource. So that is what they recommend by policy. Do we need to act on this evening also and see if we're going to follow this through or not? What does it say now in our policy? Because it recommends that newly elected officials go through the League of Cities elected official training.
If I may jump in here, your charge to the Charter Review was to make recommendations regarding the charter, not to make recommendations regarding policy. It is certainly within your right, if you all want to make it a commission policy, that you have additional training. That is certainly your right outside of the Charter Review process. So my recommendation is that we put this aside and y'all can have a discussion at another time if this is something you want to require.
Thank you, sir. Are we in agreement with that, commissioners? Put this aside and carry on? Okay. So you have your direction. Now the next question we have for those remaining 4 minutes, are we going to bring these items for discussion to another workshop? Or are we going to put these on the agenda? Mr. Manager, acting, sir.
My preference would probably be that we can either workshop it or do a special meeting. And I guess the question I have for you all is, when we have these discussions, are you going to take advantage, do you intend to take advantage of the fact that you can bring forward your own amendments for discussion? Because if that's the case, I would suggest a special meeting so that you can actually take a vote to move forward. It also gives you more time than a workshop. Workshops are 2 hours. Special meeting, regular meeting schedule. So if you plan to have any discussions on other possible amendments or blowing up the charter and writing a new one, I would suggest a special meeting. If it's just going to be a discussion of these items you want to discuss, I think a workshop would be fine.
Special meeting?
Special meeting, I'm hearing from my right. Special meeting? Special meeting? What did he say? What? Oh, no, it can't be on Saturday. I mean, it can, but special meeting? Commissioner McCool?
Absolutely.
What is your preference? Yes, sir? Oh, girlfriend. Special meeting, we're good with that? Now, Commissioner Sosa, you're good with that? Oh, no, I'm adding that right now. Commissioner Bradford has requested with food for a special meeting. I'm in accordance with that, some type of munchy situation.
Any preference on food, Ms. Bradford?
Listen, I get hangry, and we've been here since 4:30, so when I go home, my husband's going to get the brunt of this.
Well,
Just a
listen,
snack.
I'm perfectly willing to make either brisket or pulled pork and a cheesecake if you
Okay,
all
we're in.
desire.
Bingo.
All right, there we go. Yeah, all right, okay, so special
Everybody
meeting.
heard that. This is
Special
recorded
meeting with
live.
food. Troy, remember to
milk
sign up
duds.
to speak. That'll be your ticket in.
Don't forget the vegetarians in the room.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we're good. Commissioners, and manager, I think you've already dug your hole with the brisket and that other stuff and the cheesecake, so you're good?
And beef Wellington.
Okay, all right, we are adjourned.
I've been